Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays post-game shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020 or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. As fun as it was, anytime you see Brett Phillips come out to pitch, it's probably not a good thing. It is a good evening to you, and how you be. William Haynes here, you there, at 10:31 on this Friday night. Number to call the show, 877-566-1020. Tweet us at WHBC Official. This Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show is live from the WHBC studio in Clearwater, Florida. It was a ninth straight loss on the road for the Rays as they fall 11-1 to the Toronto Blue Jays in their first game in Buffalo this year from Salem Field. The Rays drop the opening game of a 3-game set that will take place over this July 4th weekend. It was Luis Patino pitching for the first time since he was back with the big league club in May, and did not look terrible. 5 1/3, five runs, really 7 of them, only 5 earned, but that was because of an error on his behalf on 7 hits. Also walked a man. The velocity was good. I thought most of his pitches was good. He was fully ready to go. He had been pitching in Durham, not even just as a rehab start, but he was fully stretched out. And 97 on the fastball. A guy that really likes to pound the strike zone, likes to throw a lot of strikes, get ahead, stay ahead, that kind of thing. And I thought going into the game, maybe that's a bad matchup against the Toronto Blue Jays team that, as it is, has a bunch of terrific hitters and that like to crush fastballs. Not only that, but just at a team that is really hot right now. And going into this series, the Jays had won 8 of their last 10. So just like with the Nationals, before you were facing another team that was really, really hot, and how was the team going to respond? And in a lot of ways, they fell flat. We talked about this being the 9th straight road loss. It was in large part with them falling behind early. They gave up 2 runs in the first and 4 in the second, so 6-0 after 2, and your chances of winning the game at that point are already extremely low, and you've still got 7 innings left to play. So the defense wasn't as sharp as it's been. I think for whatever reason, the team is on some kind of funk whenever they're away from Tropicana Field. This is the longest road losing streak for this team since 2018, which, if you don't remember, was the last time that this team did not qualify for the postseason. So, going into the second half, that's an issue that could be looming over the squad, but also keep in mind, as we're now getting closer and closer to the All-Star break, in 2008, the first team that went to the playoffs and went to the World Series, they had a 7-game losing streak going into the All-Star break. And I know the Rays in 2018, they were really pour into the All-Star break, and they ended up having the best second half of any team in the majors and actually made a pretty good playoff push after a really horrendous start. So as bad and as frustrating as it is to watch the team right now in games like this, I'm not concerned in the big picture. I think getting Luis Patino back into the picture is kind of an interesting thing with Josh Fleming on the injured list with a calf strain. It looks like he's just going to miss a couple starts. Personally, I like the upside of Patino over Fleming, but it seems like they want to have Josh Fleming back as soon as he is ready to come back off the injured list. So this may just be a temporary stay for Patino. And again, really for him, not a terrible start. With the All-Star starting lineup being revealed today for both leagues, there's like 4 or 5 All-Stars in this lineup for Toronto, so it's not going to be easy for any pitcher to navigate through this lineup. And we talked about that 1 through 9. It is a very, very good lineup. Their number 8 hitter, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., noted Rays killer. He's hitting .263 on the year, and he had a double today. I mean, really, there's nowhere in this lineup that you can, just kind of let me give him a fastball on the first pitch and get ahead 0-2 and then maybe get him to chase something bad, late in the count. It's not really like that with a lot of these guys. Marcus Semien, Bichette, Guerrero Jr., who's in the running for the MVP of the American League, Springer, Teoscar Hernandez, who's an all-star. I could go on and on, really reading that list, top to bottom, very strong hitters. So I don't think there was a problem with maybe Patino's game plan. I just think facing the wrong team at the wrong time, and all the ingredients came together for a game like this where they lose 11-1. At least they get on the board to avoid a shutout. You want to look at maybe a couple silver linings. Francisco Mejia with a couple of hits and a couple of doubles in there as well, his 7th and 8th of the year. So maybe a guy that has become a rotational player at the catcher position, heating up a little bit at the plate. That would be good to see. A guy when he can switch hit and do it effectively can be a valuable asset to a lineup. And outside of that, there really isn't any. Brett Phillips came into pitch in the bottom of the 8th in Buffalo, and from beginning to end, it was, I'm sure, something as Rays fans that we will always remember on this July 2nd of 2021. Just from warming up in the bullpen, and I'm sure, I don't think they showed it on TV, but him trotting out to the bullpen, I'm sure even that was exciting. And just having fun with the whole thing, and I think the closing just kind of perception of the game, it kind of lightened the blow a little bit of an 11-1 loss, because it was something fun, and was dropping the eephus pitch at 46 and was getting all kinds of crazy swing and misses on it. Gave up a couple of hits and a run. But obviously no harm done, really. He'll just have a career ERA of 9 for now until he comes back in. Hopefully not this year, but you never know. And I believe the Rays may have had one other position player pitching. I want to say Mike Brasso pitched earlier this season, but I'm not exactly sure. So, again, they open up a series against a really hot team with the loss. They'll have a couple more games this weekend to get things turned around in the right direction, but a 9-game road losing streak is a pretty difficult thing to snap, and it's going to be up to the pitching to improve, because there is a lot of room for improvement, and the offense to find a little more consistency, because they really fell flat. Not to bury the lead, Blue Jay starter Alek Manoah had a no-hit bid going through 5 1/3, so I thought for a while that was going to potentially steal the show, but thankfully Mejia was able to break that up with his first of the 2 doubles on the night, with 1 out in the 6th to kind of put that to bed somewhat early, I guess you would say. Earlier than it could have been, obviously. But with the 1 run, not doing a whole lot. They only have 5 hits over the course of the night, and nowhere near close enough to get you where you need to be. So, more to discuss with tonight's loss, and we'll certainly tell you everything that you need to know. Also to come, a preview of tomorrow's game is going to be Shane McClanahan against Ross Stripling, it looks like, and we'll give you all that you need to know about that, and make sure to stay tuned for the rest of the show. Number to call is 877-566-1020. You can also drop us a line on Twitter at WHBCOfficial. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBC Official. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Speaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 10:40, we return on this Rays postgame show of Rays postgame edition, of the William Haynes Show. Again, number to call the program is 877-566-1020. You can also tweet us at WHBC Official. From Mark Tompkin on Twitter, Kevin Cash, the manager on the team's latest skid, which is 4 straight overall, 9 straight on the road. Quote, "We're a good team that's not playing very well." And if you caught the first 10 minutes or so of the show, that's how I would sum that up. Nothing really to worry about. It wasn't like it was an 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position. I mean, it was a 1 for 8, so it was not far from that. But it wasn't like they were squandering scoring opportunities and, they wasted a really good showing from the bullpen or something like that. That's not how I would describe what's going on. I think there definitely is an issue with how the team is playing on the road. I would chalk that up mainly to the decline in pitching. And at this point, the Rays are 4-10 since Glasnow went down with the injury. It was the sweep in Chicago, the 4-game sweep, getting swept in Seattle, and then, of course, the 2 games that they lost against the Nationals and the first game here in Buffalo against the Blue Jays. So it's been going on for a while. They have been lacking good starts, so that means that they are in a deficit to start the game. And if you've been watching the Rays the last handful of years, obviously this team is at their best when they can get ahead early and lock it down with the bullpen, not having to chase leads late in games. Because I'm sure you could say this about every team really in the majors, or almost. I mean, I'm sure the Blue Jays feel comfortable down 3 or 4 runs with the kind of guys that they can have hit home runs out of the blue. But the Rays, when they are pressing, it is tough to watch. This is not a lineup that plays well from behind. They struck out 12 times tonight as they continue to lead all of the majors in strikeouts as a team. And every single player in this lineup struck out at least once, with 3 players, Arozarena, Wendell, and Kiermaier, striking out twice. So no one particularly hot at the plate right now. Guys going up and down. There was several everyday guys on the bench today. Yandy Diaz, Mike Zunino, and then Mike Brasso and Brett Phillips were on the bench also that I thought might make an appearance as a pinch hit substitution, but the score was such that there was no real need to do it down. They were 6-0 after 2, then 7 in the 6th, and then another few runs that they gave up in the 7th, and as you know, that was the ball game at that point. So without further ado, in 2 hours and 59 minutes and in front of a paid attendance in their temporary home of Salem Field in Buffalo, New York, of 10,011 fans, and it looked pretty full. At least the lower bowl looked like there were butts in the seats. It was an 11-1 Rays loss to the Blue Jays. The Jays advance to 42-38. They have won 9 of their last 10, I want to say, and they are on. They bounced back from a loss, so they got a 1-game winning streak going on. And the Rays drop to 47-35. They are also 24-19 on the road. So now they are just 12 games over 500. And interesting with the road record as well, what they've done. Obviously, lately, the 9 straight road losses. At one point, or really, they started off the season 24-10 on the road, which was good for the best road record in the majors. That was part of what we talked about going into that White Sox series a few weeks ago, and I think that'll be, at least for now, a big talking point as to where things maybe went wrong. It was the best road team against the best home team in Chicago, and Chicago came away with a 3-game sweep there. And then, obviously, since 24-10, they have won 9 straight games on the road. So I can't emphasize enough how concerning that is, especially in the second half with some pretty big series away from Tropicana Field. And also, division watch with the 4th consecutive loss for the team. They are now 4 games back of first place, which is the Boston Red Sox at 51-31. By the way, the Sox have won 7 in a row. And in Oakland, in the top of the 4th, the Red Sox have a 1-0 lead over the Athletics. So it looks like they may be on their way to an 8th straight win, and that would put them 4.5 games above the Rays. This is the largest division deficit for the Rays since May 9th, when they were 3.5 back of the Red Sox. And that was, I think, a couple days before they go on that incredible run. And the 11-game win streak came not long after that either. And there was the Rays for a couple of days held the best record in the major leagues. I think they held the best record in the AL for a few weeks there. And things not necessarily have gone awry, but are beginning to maybe go in the wrong direction, you would say, at least. The run line for the two teams, for the Blue Jays, it was 11 runs on 12 hits, no errors for them, and for the Rays, just 1 run on 5 hits, an error defensively for them. That was, of course, the E1 charged to Patino, and a second inning where they could have gotten out with much less runs. It was a leadoff walk to Biggio. Then Grichuk puts the ball on the ground, comebacker to the mound. Patino, instead of just getting the runner at first, decides he wants to go for the lead out, and the throw from the second baseman Lau was wide, and both men are safe, and that leads to a big 4-run inning that put the game really in the second inning out of reach. If there is such a thing, 6-0 at the time for an offense that has been definitely lackluster, especially on the road. And it just reminded me of it. 11 runs, 12 hits. This team in the last couple of games has given up a ton of runs, because that game against Washington, as much as I hate to remind you, that was 15 runs on 18 hits. The very next game, it is 11 runs on 12 hits. So it's very rare that you say this, but the pitching, at least for right now, is certainly a factor holding this team back. And I've been saying it, they're going to need to find someone to replace what's left with Glasnow. I don't even think it was obviously the strictly physical part of having him in his sub-2 ERA, and a guy that you feel confident in every 5th day starting, that can go 7 or 8 innings deep, and basically give the bullpen a day off whenever he's on the mound. Not just that, but I think just kind of the emotional weight of no longer having that guy is tough. And they have not been able to find a starter to step up in his place. Yarbrough has been especially shaky, probably the worst that he's been this year. You could argue since Glasnow went down, McClanahan has been better as of late, but Rich Hill has been up and down. Michael Wacha, obviously, I don't even need to even go into that with how upset Rays fans have been with him lately, but he's been particularly ineffective. And then now in the 5 spot, whether it's going to end up being Josh Fleming in the long run, or maybe Patino can wrestle away the spot to that, we're just going to have to wait and see. And a bullpen you would certainly say is on the decline as well, which would make you pretty uncomfortable, all things considered, with that being the unit that the team has leaned on the most, really the last few seasons. The decisions for the pitchers getting the win tonight, he's now 2-0. Alex Manoah, 7-inning shutout, 10 strikeouts, 1 walk. There was a time from the first through the third innings where he had struck out 7 in a row, and I want to say almost all of them were on that slider. Had an excellent wiffle ball looking slider pitch that was getting a ton of guys out, including righty on left, which was particularly impressive and really making Rays hitters look foolish all night long. Again, with the 7-inning strong, and walked only 1 over the course of that stretch as well. Also held a no-hitter through 5 1/3, and it was the double in the top of the 6th from Francisco Mejia that was able to break it up. And again, in the loss, the starter for the Rays, it was Luis Patino. He gave up 7 total runs over 5 1/3 of work, punched out 5 and walked 1 as well. Definitely was pounding the strike zone, but this is not a team that, even at 97, that you want to just kind of throw get-me-over strikes against. If you can call a 97-mile-an-hour fastball a get-me-over pitch, but against this lineup, that's kind of what it looks like. It's crazy. Glasnow has suffered the same thing against this Blue Jays team. I would say that's the team Glasnow has been worst against in his career. It seems like they always, know how to get his number. And I think there may be something to that. That Patino and Glasnow do have similarities with that, leaning on that power fastball. And the Blue Jays certainly know how to take that the other way. And they did that a ton tonight. Again, over 5 1/3, Patino allowed 7 runs on 7 hits. And again, now he is 1-2 on the season. Has a big league ERA of 4.87. This year with Durham, he's 3-1 with a 2.21 ERA. So you would say that there is a significant disparity between his ability at the AAA level and the big league level. You would say with the 97 at the AAA level, doesn't have to be particularly well placed to get outs. Just a lot of guys can't even touch that, even if they know it's coming. But you play a lineup with Simeon, Bichette, Vladdy, and Springer, you're going to need to do better than that. And there was stretches where Patino certainly failed to do so. The starting lineup for Kevin Cash tonight, defense first in the outfield. From left to right, it was Arozarena, Kiermaier, and Margot. And in the infield from third to first, Wendell at third, Franco at shortstop, Lau at second, Choi at first. Francisco Mejia did the catching, and the designated hitter was Austin Meadows against the right-hander Manoah. They decide to go aggressive, and they've done this a couple straight games now. They wanted to put all their best lefties at the top with the idea, at least to me, that they want to attack early and get runs. And it makes sense. Going into tonight, you had an 8-game road losing streak, and you weren't quite sure what you were going to get for Patino. So put up as much offense as you can, as early as you can, and try and go from there. And while I think that's a good strategy, it just felt a little bit flat. You put Lau, Choi, Franco, and Meadows at the top. I think that's a pretty good collection of hitters. And between those 4 men, you just get 2 hits over the course of the night. And then they had some, pretty good right-handers at the bottom with Arozarena and Margot in there as well. The batting order was Lau, Choi, Franco, Meadows, Arozarena, Wendell, and then the bottom 3 of Margot, Kiermaier, and Mejia. Again, putting the best lefties at the top. If you'll recall the last game against the Nationals where they got, the socks knocked off them in that 15-6 game, going up against the lefty John Lester, they put all their top righties at the top. They went Margot, Arozarena, Franco, Yandy, and in that game it worked. They actually put up a couple of runs in the first inning. So, again, I like the strategy. I think that's something that Kevin Cash will probably look to do in the next couple of games because, while you can't necessarily trust the pitching, the one thing that certainly give you a boost is an early lead, and I think that's the best way to do so. Trying to make a starting pitcher uncomfortable early, not allow him to get settled in and get to a team's bullpen early. That's typically been the Rays' offensive formula to success, and the attempt was certainly made. The execution fell a little bit flat. The defense overall, I would say it's been lacking as of late. There was another kind of conversation over the 3 hits in the second inning on maybe the Rays infield should have been playing deep. Instead, they were playing in, trying to be aggressive and maybe turn 2, whatever the case was. And lately, there's just been a lot of balls, not even line drives, but just hard hit ground balls finding the open space. Whether it's between first and second, or second and third, depending on who's on the mound. And Patino was giving up a lot of ground balls in that zone into shallow right field, and including a couple that allowed some runs to score. So something that I don't know exactly what the solution to that is, but it seems like, as Dave Wills was saying on the radio call, since that Chicago White Sox series, when the White Sox were able to do that with success, I recall Shane McClanahan and Yarbrough had a bunch of just pitches that got dumped into the opposite field for some singles. You do that a couple times in an inning, and then all of a sudden you found yourself a lead. So ever since then, it seems like the Rays opponents have been following that strategy, and it's definitely hurt. Also, defensively, Kevin Kiermaier made a couple of nice grabs in center. It seems like he always likes to put a little flourish on some of the deep flyouts, even if they're going to stay in the yard and he's right under the ball. He still likes to jump up to make it look like it's a good play, and that always gives me a good chuckle. But jokes aside, he has been very good in center field this year. There was a play, I'm trying to recall the situation. There was a man on first, and I believe it was in the 6th inning, the leadoff single for Hernandez. And Biggio put one up in the air in the gap in right center, basically. And for Kiermaier, that's usually a play that he can make a dive and grab on. And he did have a great jump on the play and was in position to do so. And just pulled up at the last second and fielded the ball, for a base hit. And it was first and second with no outs. The main reason he did it, obviously the man on base already. We've seen him fail to make that grab. The ball gets away, and you get into some mayhem. So he decides to pull up there, but I don't make too much of that. Also, Franco was pretty good at shortstop. He made a nice play early when they were trying to turn 2. That would have been on the Marcus Semien ground out that allowed a run to score and allowed the inning actually to continue. They would not have even been able to think about turning 2 if not for a good play by Franco, and it looks like Franco and Lau are getting comfortable over there turning double plays. They've already done it a couple of times in about the week or so that Wander has been in the big league, so that's a good thing to see. And then late in the game, when Brett Phillips was on the mound, it was a comebacker that ricocheted off of Phillips and went in the gap between second and third. Franco makes a barehanded grab and throws over to first to complete the out. And that was 2 outs, bases empty, going back to the top of the order. And then we were thinking maybe Brett Phillips was going to have a 1-2-3 inning. Of course, it doesn't end up working that way. But for a while there, and give credit for Wander. His defense, I think, has billed as advertised. Certainly, I think has lived up to the billing is what I was trying to say. With the 80 grade arm, that has been terrific, and is also a surprisingly slick fielder. We didn't see it as much in spring training, but he is really quick, and you hit the ball anywhere near him, and he's going to gobble it up and make a good quick throw over to first base. Joey Wendell held it down tremendously at third base, as he always does whenever he's over there. And for Randy, there was a play, a fly out to left. Not routine, you would say, but he tried to make a running attempt and was kind of in and out of the mitt. And I think for Randy, would like to see maybe more consistency from him in the outfield. He does make some really splashy plays. The Jumpman-esque grab early April in Fenway. But then again, later, I think, not in the same game, but later in the series, there was a play that got over his head that allowed a walk-off. Not that it was his fault, but it was about a step behind of the ball and maybe got a tough break on the play if you want to kind of nitpick it. And he's had a couple of other ones where kind of Malik Smith-esque, if you recall him from a few seasons ago, where can really make some splashy plays, but it seems like about half the time the balls, in and out of the mitt are getting away from him somehow. Everything Randy Arozarena does is an adventure. The batting helmet flying off on the base path, I think there are some legitimate connections between him and Malik, just as far as their play style and wheeling around the field like crazy, and will make some spectacular plays, but failed to make one tonight. And outside of that, there was not much really to note. And while there isn't a particular point going 1-by-1, because again, a no-hitter through 5 1/3, and they get 5 hits over the course of the night. Just a brief recap: Lau at the leadoff spot goes 1 for 4 with a run knocked in. He's got his average up to 206. On a base at 315, and certainly the struggles against left-handed pitching has continued. I don't think it's going away anytime soon, but I think Lau is beginning to overcome that with some dominance lately against right-handed pitching, and I think things will balance themselves out. I think he may finish the season, batting 230 or so, and may legitimately make a bid at 30 or so home runs. And if you would say that's what you get from him going into the year, I think we all would have taken that, even with the struggles against lefties that have been very clear to anyone to see. Started off the night 0 for 3 with a strikeout, but then got a double in the 8th, which was his 11th of the year. So he's got like 5 more home runs than he does doubles, which is kind of strange. I think that would lead you to believe, as far as the power numbers, he either really, really gets a hold of a baseball or he's kind of swinging through it. Because when he connects, I mean, they get up into the stratosphere before they land into the outfield seats. So not as many doubles, but he's got himself a slugging percentage right now of .427 as well. So all things considered, I'm happy with Brandon Lau right now, and I'm back in that place where in the leadoff spot, definitely against righties. But at the same time, I wouldn't even put him in the lineup against a lefty starter. But Cash lately, when he is in the lineup against a lefty, he'll be in the 6 or 7 spot. But you're not going to get much out of him there. I think as we go down the line, would like to see him back in the cleanup spot to get him up with some men on base a little more often. But I understand the thought process with having him in leadoff to try and get that spark to start the game. Choi goes 0 for 3 with a walk after that really good series at home against the Angels. Had a rough series, I would say, against the Nationals-ish, and has been off and on. He's hitting about 450 off of the first pitch in an at-bat, and I think anytime he comes to the plate, you feel somewhat confident about his ability to do something, but lately just has not been coming through as much. And on base at 366, so he still has been working a good amount of walks, including one tonight. In the first inning, that maybe you were thinking that they were going to get to Manoah there, and Franco and Meadows strike out to start a sequence where the Rays go down swinging 7 times in a row, and that was probably, you would point to as the turning point kind of in the game, coupled with a couple rough innings on the mound from Luis Patino. From the shortstop position, which he fielded tremendously, Wander Franco goes 1 for 4, no walks with a strikeout. He has now got his average back up to the Mendoza line at 200, hoping to get to the right side of 200 tomorrow, and on base at 300, a slugging of 314. But again, not very many games played for Franco. I don't think many people are talking about this, but I'm feeling the wanderlust, as you'll say. I'm in love with the guy ever since the first game. I was reluctant to buy into the hype, but getting the home run in his first game, I was all in, and so I'll be a Wander apologist, I'm sure, for some time this season. He's got a 4-game hitting streak, and he's reached base safely in 7 of the 9 games he's played so far. So for Franco, I know, and I think this is just more Rays hating than anything else, but he, I think, went on that 0 for 16 after that debut where he hit the home run in the double. And the average was down and everything, and everyone's saying he's a bust, blah blah blah. Obviously he's not, but the one thing we were looking for, the next box to be checked, was for him to have some consistency, and again, a 4-game hitting streak. And he's reached base, as I said, 7 of the 9 games that he's played. that's the next step for him. We've seen the flash; it can hit the home run. Still waiting to see some better hitting from the left side of the plate. Although his single in the 7th, that would have been against the righty, which would have put him on the left side of the plate. So he is starting to stack those up a little bit more. Would like to see some more power from the left side, but obviously time will tell on that. But and he's also stolen bases and all those things. But to get more production from him on more of an everyday basis, I think is the next step for him. And has not been walking as much lately. It seems like his approach at the plate has become a little less patient, grounding out a lot on pitches low in the zone. I think it was a byproduct. He had a couple of games against the Red Sox and the Angels where he would take pitches that he thought were outside of the zone, and they're called for strikes, and all of a sudden he's down 0-2, and they get him, chasing something bad on an 0-2 count for strike 3, and then he just decided to, be more aggressive early in counts. I think there are some similarities to be drawn between Franco and the Blue Jays' very own Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I want to pull this up because I think it is an interesting talking point. Vladdy was not bad, but he did struggle at points early on in his career and did show flashes, obviously, but was lacking in the consistency. And at 22 years old for Vladdy, he's certainly found that now, but a bit earlier in his career, struggled to do so. Made his debut in 2019, did Guerrero Jr., played 123 games. He hit .272 with 15 home runs. So a guy this year that's on pace for about 60 hit only 15 in what was pretty much a full season. So had the ability, but was just not doing it as much on an everyday basis. And he struck out 91 times. The next 2 seasons combined, he's got that many. 123 games, 91 strikeouts. Really in his next 140, he's got about the same. So he does still have a fair amount of strikeouts to his name. Last year, he played all 60 games, and he hit .262 with 9 home runs, and that's hard to kind of place. And then so far this year, 80 games played. He's hitting .338 with already a career-high 27 home runs and is at 22 years old. So Guerrero Jr. in that rookie season in 19, he was just 19 years old when he was doing that. And like I said, with the 15 home runs, there was the potential, there was the flash, just not the consistency. And at 22 years old, Guerrero Jr. is playing at an MVP level. And if not for Shohei Ohtani, would easily be the front runner for that award. So for Franco, I think it could be kind of the same. There is an adjustment period involved. Franco's entire minor league career, even in his brief stint at Durham this year, after a quick jump from full season A ball to AAA, his whole minor league career, he's had more walks than strikeouts, and for the first time, he's striking out more. He's walking less. He's facing higher velocity than he's ever seen. The best pitchers in the world. There is an adjustment period involved. I'm sure he'll stay up, but the numbers may not look good for a little while. He may not finish the season great, but it's just going to be a part of the process getting him used to being a big league ball player. And I don't think it's crazy to say in a couple of years that he'll be playing at the level that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is at right now. So that's it. I know I've been talking a lot about Wander lately, but at a time when the team is not playing so well, I think it's important, of course, always to look at the positives. In the cleanup spot tonight in the DH, Austin Meadows 0 for 4, no walks, a strikeout. A typical night for him. Chased some sliders down and away and put the ball in the air a couple times. I think once to the warning track. I want to say that was in the 7th. So I would say that's a very typical Austin Meadows game. He's been really on at times and then cooled off, hitting .235 right now. I'm not quite sure what to make of him, and it's been kind of an everyday DH. So give him time just to see where he's at. I'm still kind of feeling out where he is right now. It seems like he may be going back in a slump, but it's too early to tell. Arozarena goes 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts and averaged down to .258. He's on base is 336 right now. Struck out in his first 2 at-bats and looked pretty bad against the Manoah Sliders. And that's another thing, evaluating the performances tonight. I mean, everyone was bad through 7 innings against a starter who had the best start probably of his young major league career, Manoah, in his rookie season. And for Randy, did come up with a man on base in the 7th, and he flew out to right. And I want to say that one was pretty well struck. There was a lot of deep flyouts really from both sides tonight. And the stadium in Salem Field that plays pretty shallow, it seems like. It's pretty easy to hit home runs there. It was eating up, it seemed like quite a bit of maybe home run potential balls. And I think Patino, more than anyone else, benefited the greatest. Even though he did give up a home run, there was a lot more that could have gone out that did not, and Kiermaier making some nice grabs down there near the wall. Joey Wendell goes 1 for 4 with a couple strikeouts, not necessarily indicative of what he's been doing lately, an average at 275. Struck out in his first 2 at-bats, and then singled against Manoah in the 7th to put a couple of men on, and they were not able to do anything with that, and then grounded out to first for the last out of the game. Margot 0 for 3 with a strikeout, and he put the ball on the ground for an out with a couple of men on in the 7th. And Kiermaier 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. He has looked, I would say, pretty bad as of late, an average all the way down to 225, and way more strikeouts in his game than you would like. And then Mejia struck out in his first at-bat on that slider against Manoah, and then his next 2 at-bats hit doubles, his 7th and 8th of the season. One, I think, got in the gap, and the other one was right down the first base line that was almost called foul, and some said maybe should have been, but has struggled since coming off the injured list the second time. We've said that a bunch, and I felt validated a little bit. They said on the broadcast that double in the 6th for Mejia was his first extra base hit since the Rays were in Dunedin, which was earlier last month in June. That was in May 21st through the 24th. I want to say they said it was the 22nd game. So his first extra base hit since May 22nd, which is a really long time. Since then, he's played 18 games and had 48 at-bats without an extra base hit. And it's funny that they both came against the Blue Jays, so maybe Mejia is just a Blue Jay killer. And I know he had that grand slam when the Rays swept the Jays in Dunedin. It seems like ages ago that we were at that point. I'm afraid we might be on the bad end of a sweep here if we can get things turned around. The lineup as a whole struck out 12 times, walked only once, and with 5 hits on the night. Again, just want to remind, I guess, the world, Alex Manoah was really, really on tonight. Had an A+ slider. Again, looked like a wiffle ball pitch. I'm glad that the umpires are checking for foreign substances, because I can't believe that he wasn't using anything with the kind of break that it had and was just fooling guys. The approach, I think, was really aggressive too, and anytime this team presses, especially on offense, it's a bad thing. It never works out. But you can see a lot of guys swinging at the first pitch and playing right into Manoah's hands as far as that goes. Manoah threw 109 pitches, 71 for strikes, and he only threw 14 first pitch strikes to the 25 men that he faced. So, I mean, there was 11 guys that started off, 1-0, and he only allowed 4 base runners over 7 innings, so not much offense to be had against him. And now looking at the Rays pitching side more in depth, Patino with the losses now 1-2 on the year, 5 1/3, 7 runs on 7 hits, walked a man, struck out 5, and gave up a home run. That was to George Springer in the first inning that put them on the board 2-0, and obviously they never looked back. He threw 94 pitches, 64 were for strikes, so I would say that's pretty good and around where he wants to be, because it seems since spring training his calling card has been the ability to throw strikes. He's got an ERA right now at 4.87, so almost near 5, which is not good. but it's not pitched a ton this year. This was only his 6th start of the year and his first big league start since May 18th when he had that middle finger, I think they said incision or something like that, a blister that kind of opened up. Like I said, was pitching to a 2.21 ERA this season in Durham, so it was dominating down there. A lot of scoreless outings. I think some of us were expecting that, but maybe that was not realistic, considering a Blue Jays lineup that is red hot right now. Did establish the first pitch strike. 19 of the 25 men that he faced started off 0-1, so that was good, but there was guys in 0-2 counts that were not phased by 97, and they were turning on it. And some of them were like right on the corner too, which, I mean, that not the pitcher's fault, but there was too many pitches that were over the zone. There was some sliders that did not break down and away as much as they should have. They would have stayed in the strike zone if they were taken, but most of them were dumped off into right field for opposite field hits. When the slider was on, he was getting some good swing and miss. And another thing that I thought about Patino, and maybe you give Francisco Mejia credit for this as well, and Mejia, we'll talk about him in a second defensively, but Patino, he started off mainly fastballs with some sliders mixed in. He was throwing 97 out the gate, and that's what he was relying on. Well, he gives up, six runs off of that the first 2 innings. And then when he calmed down, because he had retired 10 in a row, he had put up 1, 2, 3 innings in the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. So really, really settled down and kind of changed his game a little bit. A large part of that, he went to the cutter. Instead of the fastball at about 97, started going cutter at about 92, 93, up to 94 with a little bit more movement on it. And he throws some 2-seams in there as well, so I'm sure the cutters and 2-seams look awfully similar at about the same speed. And it seemed like it was fooling some hitters. They were taken for strikes a few times, and that helped him in retiring those 10 in a row from the end of the 2nd through the end of the 5th inning, when he was given the race. Obviously some much needed relief because the bullpen has been emptied as of late, even with all the off days. So good that he could even give 5 1/3 with the first couple of innings that he had. And so that is something that I look at, and a guy that I think has potential to be a valuable contributor to the rotation. There was, you'll recall, anyone that listens to my program, I've been pretty harsh on Shane McClanahan to start the season. I've been much higher on him lately because he's made changes to some things that I was concerned about. I was concerned about, his sequencing and what pitches he was going to where and where they were placed, all that stuff. I just thought maybe he wasn't ready for the show. But lately, Shane McClanahan, much better sequencing and all those things. And for Patino, that was a big adjustment, the 2nd and 3rd time through the order to go to the cutter over the fastball. And like I said, I think does have potential. I'm not sure many people see it, but 97, not against the Blue Jays tonight, but against most teams, is going to play and play big. And we've already seen it. His first start with the Rays was against the Blue Jays, and I think he retired the first 9 or something that he faced and looked really, really good. And like I said, I don't know exactly what the future is going to hold for him if they decide to send him back down when Josh Fleming is ready to come back up. I have no indication as to which one of those is going to happen, so we're just going to have to wait and see. No, we will not have to wait and see. I just refreshed the Twitter. Mark Tompkin, as of 32 minutes ago, the Rays optioned Patino back to AAA. So I would presume that maybe Taylor Walls gets called back up. I would like to see them maybe call or send Brasso down if they're going to bring Walls back up, and that way they can bring up Lewis Head for some bullpen relief. But that answers the question. Patino is going to be going back to AAA, and we might as well have the discussion now because I don't know when the next time we'll be able to have it. I guess we already pretty much said most of it, but has upside, and while he did a lot of things right, maybe there's some minor adjustments that they want him to make. I really would argue that he is a better starting pitcher than Josh Fleming. But I think Josh, even with the stuff being nowhere near Patino, is able to navigate through lineups a little bit better. And they obviously prefer him because they were eager to bring him back as soon as they could off the injured list, and now is sending Patino back, the night after the start in order to obviously bring, another player back up, is them saying that they want him to have some more time. So I don't know what else he has to prove at the AAA level. He's been, extremely dominant, but I would assume not be seeing him until maybe another injury. Also, if I can pull it up, before the game, the Rays had a couple of pitchers, I think, throwing at the alternate training site, maybe at Port Charlotte. Chris Archer and Oliver Drake both threw to hitters today for one simulated inning in Port Charlotte and did well. Chris Archer was 90 to 93 miles an hour, Oliver Drake 90 to 91. They will extend both to 2 innings in a few days. So Drake maybe could be back, you would think, maybe right after the All-Star break. And I think Chris Archer maybe would be able to start a game legitimately, a few innings sometime in August, like right around when Nick Anderson is coming back. So there are some reinforcements, but as of right now, you would say Patino is the number one guy at the top of the list if a starting pitcher is needed to be called up. I think Michael Wacha is legitimately 2-3 more bad outings away from getting ousted, only because Cash still seems really high on him. But if you do bad, 5 or 6 consecutive outings, I don't know how you keep giving the guy a pass. But he pitched well. But we'll talk about Wacha in a couple of days when the time comes to see him again. After Patino's 5 1/3, Jeffrey Springs pitched an inning, and to say the least, it was not good. He finished, Springs the 6th inning, and he struck out the 2 men that he faced. It was Gurriel Jr. and Reese McGuire. He came back out to start the 7th, and it was a disaster. A home run allowed to Simeon, a single to Bichette, and another home run to Guerrero Jr. that knocked in a couple of runs and then walked Springer. He finished the night off with a strikeout to Hernandez, but for better or for worse, it looked like he was throwing batting practice to those guys, mainly Simeon and Guerrero Jr. Threw 39 pitches, only 20 for strikes as well. So was getting guys into hitters counts a lot. Was 4 for 7 at the first pitch strike, and with a 3-run inning, his ERA is up to 3.82. So he's still not having a bad season, but a couple of home runs allowed in an inning is never a good thing. And I think right now you would say, even though it's funny how far he's come, he was saving a game in Yankee Stadium early this season, and now you would say, along with Matt Whistler, he's probably at the bottom as far as leverage relievers go. Speaking of Whistler, he got a couple of outs, and he did them cleanly. He just cleaned up the mess Springs made in the 7th, striking out Biggio and getting Grichuk to fly out. So not a bad outing for him. After, I think, getting the loss his last time out, giving up that big home run to Gosselin against the Angels. And Brett Phillips in the 9th inning, we already talked about him, so I'm not going to go into it anymore. But gives up 2 hits and a run, 2 walks. Started off the first pitch at 94, and there wasn't a whole lot of effort put into that either, which was pretty strange. And then after that, it was all eephus pitches, big looping, 45-mile-an-hour fastballs. Not a lot of them found the zone. 23 pitches, 12 for strikes. But when you bring the position player in, the kind of understood agreement is that you kind of swing at whatever he throws just to get the game over with. That's the point of the position player pitching. But it was fun to watch. It was a great way to end what was otherwise a pretty bad night, obviously, when you lose 11-1. And I didn't see anything on it from Tompkin, but I am very eager to say what Kevin Cash has to say about Phillips' antics. He was doing these crazy wind-ups and stuff that was all for show just because he was having a good time. And he balked because he dropped the ball, just doing something just kind of boneheaded. And I say that in a loving way. I'm a big Phillips guy. I think he's a great fit for this team. He was just a goofball. I mean, that's something you do in a Little League game or a high school game when you let your outfielder pitch. This is the big leagues, baby, and he's doing this stuff. So, if anything, just the cojones that this guy has to do what he does, especially when your team is losing, 10-1 at the time, to come out and do this, I think is one of those things that it could get the guys loose maybe going into tomorrow. That's a bit of a stretch, but as close as you could get to finishing the night on a high note with an 11-1 final, I think, is what Phillips provided tonight. So, again, it was a fun watch, and that pretty much closes it up. I've said it a bunch of times tonight, and I'll say it one more time. A really good start for the opponent. They were not able to get anywhere near, talk about making a starter uncomfortable. You strike out 7 times in a row. That's about as far from that as you could possibly get. So they fail in that category. And then on the other side of the ball, they give up 6 runs in 2 innings. And those 2 things working in tandem, you're not going to have a chance to win that ball game. And the Rays did not tonight. So that is what it is. Also in the top of the 6th, the Red Sox up 2-0 on the Athletics. And once more, if the Red Sox win, they will hold a 4.5 game division lead on the Rays, as this was the first game the Rays have played in the month of July. And they are now 0-1 in the month of July. Last thing we have to discuss is the game tomorrow, and we'll tell you about that on the other side of the break. Once more, anyone tuning in, you'd like to call the show, we would love to hear from you. 877-566-1020. You can also tweet us at WHBC Official. If not, we'll be back in a minute and tell you about tomorrow's game. Don't go anywhere.
Hey Rays fans, William will be right back. We're in a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us internationally toll-free at 877-566-1020 or tweet us your thoughts at WHBC Official. Also, we'd like you to stay tuned for William's other podcasting projects at speaker.com/user/WHBC.
Sports Radio 1019 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 11:27, we are back on the William Haynes Show. Last thing we have to discuss, tomorrow's game against the Blue Jays. It will be at 3:07 Eastern Time. The Jays taking game 1 of the best of 3, so they look to level the series. It'll be the lefty McClanahan against the righty Ross Stripling. We'll start with the Rays pitching side first. Starting on the mound will be the 24-year-old left-hander Shane McClanahan. Is 3-2 on the season with a 4.09 earned run average. His last time out against the Angels on June 26th gave up 3 runs on 4 hits over 6 innings of work, walked 2, struck out 7, and 87 pitches thrown. Taking a look at that game, if I recall, there was some frustration early and did show some composure to kind of get out of a jam and give his team a chance to win. That was on Devil Ray Day at the Trop, where they scored 13 runs. So a 3-run inning that he allowed in the third, he was able to work out of it. 9 men came to the plate in that inning, in fact, and a couple of doubles that just were unlucky, I would say. Just kind of a bloop here and there that just gets put in the right spot. But outside of that, was probably his best game of the year, with Mike Zunino catching, which is certainly the superior pairing. And let me just throw this out there because I forgot to talk about it when we were talking about the tonight's loss. Mejia catching Patino. Mejia, of course, was Patino's teammate in San Diego last year, and he caught Patino's first start, and it seems like he's caught most of them. For Mejia, I typically am critical of his pitch sequencing, but I thought for most of the night did a good job with Patino, and it seemed like he had some shortcomings offensively, a couple of wild pitches and a pass ball that on Zunino's watch I'm not sure would have been there, but if Patino makes his way back to the bigs this year, it seemed like him and Mejia were a good pairing. And the reason I bring that up because McClanahan and Zunino have been a terrific pairing. Back to McClanahan, that start against the Angels. Started off with a big fastball in 97-98, try and get up to 2 strikes as quick as possible, and some terrifically placed sliders and some really well mixed in curveballs as well. And like I said, sequencing was great, probably his best start of the year outside of that third inning where he gave up 3 runs. He has faced the Blue Jays this year. That was on May 22nd. He went 5 innings, giving up just 1 run on 4 hits. Walked 2, struck out 4 on 67 pitches. So that was in the process of them, still getting him stretched out. Looking at that game to see what he put together. That was in Dunedin where they won 3-1. And gave up a double to Hernandez in the first. It gave up a run, and then again after that was strong. Put up 1, 2, 3 innings in the second, third, and just a couple of base runners in the fourth and the fifth. So kept it quiet pretty much the whole game, and was good against most of the Jays hitters. Struck out Simeon a couple of times, struck out Bichette. He walked Guerrero Jr. once and struck him out. And all the other guys he just faced twice, and was a mixed bag of results as far as that goes. So McClanahan looking to build off of his last start, 6 innings, 87 pitches. He has not thrown more than 90 in a start. They may want to look at doing that, but the bullpen is somewhat well rested, even with the off day. I still think there's some guys that would be unavailable, mainly Fairbanks. I don't think would even be available tomorrow. So if they can get maybe 6 from him, and that would be great if he could put up a good start, giving up maybe even no runs, but just 1 or 2, and give the offense a chance in this game where they did not really have much of a chance here tonight. And then out of the bullpen, who is available, high leverage spots, Castillo and Fireisen would probably be at the top of that list. And so if McClanahan goes 6, you only need 1 more guy. They may make a pitching move to bring up maybe like a Lewis Head, but that's probably not as likely. They've got Andrew Kittredge in the pen. Ryan Thompson obviously on the injured list, so he's no longer a part of that bullpen. And outside of those names that I just mentioned, Kittredge, Fireisen, Castillo, there's not much else out there. Fairbanks, you threw, it seemed like almost 40 pitches his last time out. He's going to be out for a while. McHugh for bulk, but I don't think they would need that. Obviously, Rasmussen, Springs would be out of conversation, and Whistler. So garbage time, they would go to Whistler again. McHugh if they need big-time innings. And then high leverage, you would say maybe Rasmussen, Fireisen, and Castillo to close things out. So they do have options as far as where they want to go with the bullpen. And on the Blue Jay side of things, getting the start, the 31-year-old right-hander Ross Stripling. He has 3-4 on the season with a .427 earned run average. His last time out, it was against the Orioles on June 27th. Gave up 2 runs on 6 hits over 5 innings, walked 1, struck out 3 through 95 pitches. And in the month of June, pitched to an ERA of .318. So it's coming off a pretty good month. And he has also faced the Rays this year, and it was his best start of the year. 7 innings shutout, just 2 hits, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, and on just 76 pitches. That is absolutely absurd, and that was going off of a horrible outing the last time out too. So a game that came out of the blue. I don't remember a ton about that game, but I do remember just how disappointing it was. That was one of those games in Dunedin that the Rays won 14-8. That was that absurd, extra inning game. I think Mejia, I want to say, hit the grand slam. No, that was not the grand slam game for him, but it went 11 innings. For Stripling, is that right? The 24th? My 24th is the game where they hit the grand slam in the first inning. So, let me pull that up. I think is ESPN pulling my leg? Yeah, that was the wrong game. I apologize. The 14-8 game. Yeah, that was not the Trent Thornton. Oh my gosh. Ross Stripling came out of the bullpen. That's right. I apologize for not being better prepared. So it was on that 24th game in Dunedin. The Rays hit a grand slam. That was Joey Wendell. They put up 5 runs in the first, and they knocked the starter Trent Thornton out of the game. Ross Stripling came out of the bullpen and gave them 7 innings strong. The only guys to do anything against him, Choi walked. Wendell got hit by a pitch. Lau doubled, Wendell doubled, and Lau walked. That was it. So that is an absurd game. The last time he faced the Rays, 7 innings out of the bullpen. So with something as unforgettable as that, I cannot believe that I didn't remember. And he was unbelievable. It's obviously a lot different this time out with him being a starter, and the Rays knowing that they're going to see him in bulk and not out of the pen. So I think that would maybe change things up a little bit. And a guy that they were, that they should have beat around the last time. I think they may have a better chance of doing so here this time around. And 2 runs over 5 innings against the O's his last time out. Looking at the scouting report, he's got a fastball that can get up to about 94, a changeup at the low 80s, and has a slider at mid to high 80s as well. So a pretty powerful slider pitch, and a knuckle curve at about 78 as well. So a decent pitch mix, but to me, not a fantastic pitcher. I think they might have saw him last year with the Dodgers as well out of the pen. But this time, he'll be on the mound to start the game in Buffalo, New York, and a Blue Jays pen that is pretty awful as well. It didn't end up coming into play tonight, but if it's close late, obviously the advantage would go to the Rays. The Blue Jays, even as good as they have been lately, I think they're maybe we've won 9 of their last 10. They're 42-38 for a reason, 4 games above 500. They do have some shortcomings, and mainly with the bullpen. So, really, to me, Shane McClanahan had a good start. Just keep him in it. Maybe the offense scores a run here or there, and get the game into late innings and get to the bullpen. That, to me, would be the key to the game. So, closing out the show, a 3:07 first pitch. We will be on the air, call it 10 p.m. Eastern, to talk about the game, all the typical post-game coverage, all that just a little bit delayed. I want to thank everyone for checking out the program tonight, and as always, look forward to taking some calls and tweets over this weekend as we head into the All-Star break. This was game number 82 of the Rays, so officially we are in the second half of the season, hoping to snap the 4-game losing streak, 9 straight losses on the road. I think they'll have a decent chance to do so. Again, on the air at 10 tomorrow. As always, we'll talk to you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC